Hello everybody, my name is Alan, I'm from Sauber-Lab, and today will be another video about what I need to consider in order to configure my server in relationship of, yes, a Raspberry Pi. In this video we're gonna tell a little bit more about power supply, what you need to consider, what you need to have in mind, and what kind of options of power supply that you have and how you can dimensionate or can choose the best option for your application. So, if you like this idea and want to learn a little bit more about it, we're gonna show in this video, but first of all, don't forget to leave your like, consider to subscribe for the channel, and let's understand a little bit more about it. So first thing, let's start with the Raspberry Pi. Here's a Raspberry Pi. Only connection that you have for power this Raspberry Pi, it's this USB-C. So have this one in mind. I have a power supply from Raspberry Pi. This one is original Raspberry Pi power supply, where they deliver 5.1 volt, 3 amps, and in this one they have a connection of USB-C. The only connection, only power supply that you can choose for your Raspberry Pi, it's one of those 5.1 volts, 3 amp, and in this way they have enough power to power this Raspberry Pi. Also, they have enough power to power the USBs if you want to use external hard drives. Of course, if you're doing an external hard drive 3.5 inch, you're gonna need a little bit more power. If you're using a laptop or SSD, you don't need an extra power supply. So this is the only option that you can have in order to power on your Raspberry Pi. When you look for a home server or a computer, it's a lot of things to consider. First thing, it's the type of power supply that you use. Most of the power supplies, they will have that motherboard connection, where it's 24 plus 2, and it's the standard one. So you don't need to worry about it, because if you buy the power supply, 9% of the chance that will fit for your motherboard. But it's not only the connections that you need to consider. You need to consider how much power that they will use. In this way, I open this website where I find the internet, and it's quite interesting for you. In this way, you can set up some basic information. You can have expert mode, or you can have a basic mode. In this case, I will go for a basic mode only because it's the basic information that I want to input, and I want to have an idea how much power supply or how much energy that I need. So first thing is the tape. In my case, will be a desktop. If you're using a server or mini ITX, you need to change, but in my case, it will be a desktop. First thing, this desktop will have only one CPU. Will be really difficult for you to find a desktop that have more than one CPU. This reason that we're gonna select only one. All my videos, I'm using the E3-12100F. So I will continue using this one as a reference because it's 60 watts power consumption. Of course, have other revisions or other CPUs that maybe you can have a little bit less power consumption, but it's not so easy to get as a single component, and that's the price is quite high. And as I showed in the previous video, if you get everything together, will cost not so much. So in this way, I will put i3-12100TF, and here's my power supply. In this case, I will use 4 slots of RAM memory, and I use a DDR4 4 GB because it was quite cheap and I already have in my site. So now graphic card, I will not use at this stage because I didn't explain what kind of graphic card that we should use, so I will not put as a power supply required. In my case, that motherboard that I select have 4 SATA connection. In this way, I decide as a storage 4, and I would decide as a SATA. The last video I show a WD-RAD that have a RPM as a 5.4K. I didn't use any other hard drive that have high RPM because I didn't need about it. So 5.4K. And also in the previous video I show about motherboard that have a motherboard with 3 PCI Express, have 3 NVMe connections. In this way I will choose these 3 NVMe. You're gonna ask why I want these 3. I want those 3 because one of those will be OS and more 2 will be mirror with my Docker application because I have all my Plex server there and I don't want to lose it for any reason. Of course, I can do backup quite often, but only as a extra safety. If I forget to do backup for my Plex server or for all my data in my Docker application, I still have my data. So in this way, I will put 2 NVMe. Other things that I need to put an optical drive? No, I don't want because it will be a simple server. I have monitor? No, because I never use a monitor in this server, will be outside. Now I need to consider how many hours of utilization. Because it's a server, I want to be 20/7 on, or at least I want to consider in the worst case that will be 20/7. So in this way I put always on 20/7. Now I can use a game or I cannot use as a game. Because I don't have a video card, they will not make so much difference. But in my case, I want to consider that 4 hours a day I will be using my Plex and that I will do a transcode and will use 100% of my CPU to get all this transcode running. So I put 4 hours. Later we're gonna change for 24 only to compare, but in this stage it will be 4 hours. So I can come here and put calculate. Nice, or the interesting part of this website, they already propose the power supply, how much power that you're gonna need as a power supply. Also, they say that your load watts will be around 207. This one will be the worst case. Not always will be 207. Will be a little bit less. When you are processing more, it will be high. When you process less, will be less. But we'll consider as a 207 as a worst case. So they advise you with a little bit extra power to have a 257. Why they advise this power? Because I'm using around 60 watts for my CPU and plus 6 watts for each storage that I'm using. In this way, they consider that in the worst case, if you're using 100%, they will use that amount of power and will not oversaturate your power supply. Why this one's important? Because if they oversaturate your power supply, they can stop to work, they can shut, and that you need to restart your system, or if it starts to happen quite often, you can damage all the components for your system. Imagine that you're running some transferring your data, and in this time your CPU stop, everything stop, can corrupt your data, and no one wants to happen it. So this reason that's interesting to have this one in mind. So in this way, they say, or they suggest you to use this power supply. But before we come here and decide this power supply, we need to understand which kind of power supplies that we can have and what options of power supply. In this case, they say a gold power supply. But what means 8+ gold? So I find this picture on the internet. And this picture is quite interesting. What they explain? That's 8+, it means that have 8% of efficiency at least. Of course, each power supply I will give a little bit more, not less than it, because they say that 8% plus. If you go to bronze, they say that it will be around 82, silver 85, gold will be 87, and platinum will be around 89% of efficiency. So in this way, you know how much efficient that you have. And you're gonna ask, Alan, not so much difference. Yes, it's not so much different initially, but over time they will make a difference. Also, depend on which kind of power supply that you choose or which level of the power supply, the warranty will be a little bit high. Other thing that's really important when you choose your power supply is you need to choose a brand power supply. This one because the power supply, it's the main source of power, and that if you choose a really cheap one or a China one that's not trustable, you can put all your system risk. Why I mean it? Because they are not stable. They anytime can have any problem in the system and have an increase of tension. Imagine that your hard drive should operate with 12 volts plus 5 volts, and that for any reason this tension go up to 16 and 10 or go really high. It means that if all your components can burn, your data can be lost, your CPU will be lost, your motherboard will be lost, you can start a fire for everything, so it's not worth the risk. You're gonna save a little bit, think that you're gonna save, but in the end you're gonna put all your system risk. So don't go for a cheap or unknown brand of power supply. Go for one of the no power supply. In this reason, I will open the website for the Corsair and show a little bit difference that you can choose. Corsair is one of the brands that I like. but I use different ones. Only because I like the way that they do for different modelers. So if I open here the website, they have the CX series where they have 60 watts, where they offer the 8 Plus. What's interesting for this one? Because they are same modular system. And if you look here, you have your cable for your motherboard always connected there, and that you can add extra cables depending for your needs. Suppose that you wanted to connect a SATA there, so you can connect the cable for SATA. Imagine that you want to put your graphic card, you can connect the cable for the graphic card. This one will be only interesting if you want to optimize the space. If you don't want to optimize the space, don't pay a little bit extra for it. Also, this one, it's a little bit overpowered, consider what we need in that situation. In that case was 450, but this one is only example that I find. Other thing, you always can have some options that will have some extra light. This one not make any difference because it's still as a bronze, the same way as a bronze for this one. So no difference for the power consumption or efficient. Also, other interesting thing that is, it's a 3 years warranty. So the bronze one have a little bit less warranty compared for others. If I come here for this one, they are at a full modular. It means that they will not have any connection here. If you're not using your motherboard cable, they will not have this motherboard connection already connected there. If you're not using your PSU, you're not gonna have it. One thing that's interesting, it's because they are gold rate. If I come here, they are gold. They already give a little bit more years of warranty, and it means that will give a little bit better efficient. According here, they say 9%, and that's 7 years warranty. And if you want to spend a little bit more, you can have a platinum. In my opinion, platinum it's overkill. You don't need to have a platinum. Gold it's right good enough for your application. This platinum you're gonna pay much more, only for that a little bit extra, and that's you're gonna have a little bit more extra warranty. Also, because we're looking really high power, what we don't need at all, you're gonna have a lots of different peripherals or a lot of different connections, but that 24 pins ATX will have exactly the same as the others power supply. If I go a little bit down, because they have a platinum operation, they have all the special components, and that will have 10 years warranty. I will tell those power supply, it's one of things that will not burn so easy unless you keep 100% of load or unless you do something wrong. So these 10 years of warranty, it will be unnecessarily based overkill for your application. And the power supply, it's one thing that fail at least, and that will be working. Only thing that you need to look is the efficient for this system, because this one will deliver. If I come back for my picture, I will say something. If you have in mind, each 1 watt that I'm using for the 8 Plus, it means that 0.8 watts it's properly delivered for the computer, for any application. The rest is lost for transmissibility, for temperature, for noise and everything. So in this way, we finish to explain what you need to consider to choose your best power supply for your application. As I told, have calculation. You need to look for your budget and how much efficient. I will say that gold will be a good go, or if you don't want to spend a little bit less, you can go a little bit downgrade, but gold it's a good option. So I hope that you like this video. If you like this video, don't forget to leave your like, consider to subscribe for the channel, and see you next time.